Welcome back, Sea House. This is Miss Pope, sounding a little under the weather because I spent too much time outdoors and the pollen destroyed my allergies. So I'm going to talk to you today about your argumentative one-pager. And yes, it is only one page. Psych, it'll probably be 1.5. But we've given you exactly what we want you to do. So I'm going to go over what the assignment is, some do's and don'ts, the rubric, and then the actual one-pager. All right, so using Medea in the following writing topic, write a detailed and coherent argumentative one-pager. Remember to include a thesis, explain the importance of your examples, and communicate voice. So this means this is how you add your own flair to it. It's hard to have any sort of creativity in an argumentative essay, but the way that you structure your writing does that for you. You'll write your final draft online and submit it in Google Classroom. So you can use any of these things, right? Anything you've worked on so far. Here's your actual task. So while reading Medea, you took notes on various speeches given both by Medea and Jason. Using your knowledge of the rhetorical triangle, you will construct an argumentative one-pager answering, who is the stronger rhetorician in the play, Medea or Jason? If you think back, we've heard how awesome Odysseus was at being a rhetorician. So we're talking before Odysseus. Support your claim by explaining how the rhetoric used by each individual is either effective or ineffective, right? So sometimes having too much emotion in a speech can make something very ineffective. That's good. Point that out, okay? Analyze and provide specific examples. So that means use text evidence. If you don't use text evidence, you will not do well on this paper. Identify what type of rhetoric they're using and then explain, is it the most effective in Medea or Jason's assertions? What examples are ineffective and why? So essentially you're arguing who builds the better arguments by comparing and contrasting their use of ethos, pathos, and logos. So here are some tips. Do write in present tense, vary your wording, explain all examples, edit for grammatical errors. That's trivial things. Guys, when you see the rubric, you're going to understand why this is important. Be specific, avoid words like stuff and things, okay? Definitely. It is stronger to say this is a metaphor instead of this most likely is a metaphor. Use transition words and structure your essay based on the passage, all right? Also, things we don't want to see. Don't begin your essay with Medea is a better rhetorician because blah, blah, blah. That's lame. Give me a strong, forceful thesis. If we were arguing in class, what would be your opening statement? That's what you start your one-pager with. Don't announce, okay? That's immature writing. Don't use personal pronouns. Don't use things like I think, I believe, I feel, because quite frankly, we don't care. You are arguing something, okay? Your opinion is going to be asserted by the way that you argue it, okay? That's your voice. You don't include I think, I feel, I believe. Don't use words like a lot, mad, bad, wanna, gonna, large, and huge. These terms are elementary and do not reflect the writing of an honor student. All right, so here's your rubric. Very straightforward. Do you have the MLA format? Okay, here is an example. If you copy this exactly, you will have those 10 points. Do you have a clear thesis that states which side you are on? Do you use text evidence? Right, you need to use it whenever it's requesting you to in the one-pager and as often as necessary. Do you provide analysis? All right, so my kids sometimes, and this is seniors I teach too, they lay down a strong example and then they move on. They don't analyze it, okay? So if you're going to say Jason is better at arguing than Medea because he uses facts and logic, okay, explain why that's important, okay? How does that support your idea? Counterclaim, you're also arguing for Jason. Though Medea does present, a strong, passionate speech, this is weak in comparison to someone who speaks with facts. Does that make sense? That's your one sentence. Your concluding statement, okay, we like to say this is your mic drop. How are you closing out your argument? If you were trying to convince your parents why you should be able to go somewhere when we are finally allowed to leave our houses, what's your final statement to convince them of this? And then proper grammar, okay? So once you've made 5 errors in your writing, you lose the 10 points, all right? It doesn't matter if those 5 errors occur in the first body paragraph or in the first sentence. you've lost the 10 points. So at best, you're looking at a 90. It's imperative that you pay attention and you proofread because writing is a process and you catch something new every time. This includes your personal pronouns, slang, and announcements. We don't want to see it. So here is your one pager. All right. You have your proper MLA formatted heading, your title. It's not going to be one word and it should not be Medea essay. Think outside the box. This is one of the only places you're allowed to be creative in this assignment. Try not to make it boring and make sure you don't bold it, underline it, italicize it, nothing like that, okay? And it's not one word or the name of the assignment. So let's look. Your first sentence should be a strong topic sentence to let your readers know exactly what you're arguing, okay? In other words, your thesis statement, in other words, aka whose side are you on, right? So your second sentence should transition into textual support you're referencing from the play that directly relates to the topic of your analysis. In other words, directly relates to the first sentence of this paragraph. All right, so transition could be context, it could be summarizing something, it could be leading in to like a character description of the person that you've chosen. It's totally up to you how you make this transition, but you need this transition sentence because you don't want to go from a thesis statement straight into a quote that has no context, all right? So your third sentence is where you begin by providing quoted support with parenthetical citation from the play, right? Your goal here is to not provide a freestanding quote. In other words, don't plop a random quote in here because that is immature and you guys are way better writers than that. If any of you have heard of the verb trick, essentially you take a sentence from the play that you want to quote. All right, let's say it's Medea talking to Jason. And instead of quoting the whole entire sentence, you find the verb in the sentence, all right? And then everything that comes before that verb, you summarize in your own words. You paraphrase it, okay? You give us the context, and then that leads directly into the quote. And then you follow that up with your analysis, all right? So your fourth sentence should be your explanation of the importance of the quote. Definitely do not say, this quote says, the author says, the quote provided, or this quote, anything like that. It should directly relate to the topic of the paper and emphasize the point you're making. Explain how the quote is a good example in supporting your argument. This may mean that you're directly referencing what type of rhetorical device it is, okay, and what effect it has in being stronger or weaker, all right? Your fifth, sixth, and seventh sentences should transition into your analysis. This sentence is where you begin referencing specific text support from other parts. Let's see, this should say play. That directly relate to your thematic analysis, okay? So this is going to be your argumentative. Yeah, there we go. Your eighth sentence should serve as a counterclaim. Okay, this is huge. You get 10 points for having a counterclaim. You want those 10 points, okay? So lay out your one sentence, although this other person presents a valid argument here, blah, 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 whatever you choose to say, you have to have that in there. Okay, this is something on the EOC they look for. This is something in your future writing classes they look for. You have to acknowledge that the other side presents some sort of valid argument, okay? Your ninth and 10th sentences will be where you close up your paragraph and bring your ideas to an end, okay? This is your original thought and your own analysis. The idea of these last two sentences, it's like your conclusion, okay? You have just laid out this large, this huge argument, okay? What, after arguing all this stuff, is the ultimate takeaway from it, okay? So it shouldn't be a repeat of your thesis. That's basic and boring, and we don't want to do that. It should be something innovative and something that, like, after you've read through your whole paper, you're like, wow, I really learned this about the story, okay? And that's where you put this in there. This is where you should make connections between your ideas. And I'm sorry, kids, no leaving me hanging, okay? That is elementary school creative writing. And while it's fun, it doesn't serve a purpose in formal writing, okay? Very important, guys. You still provide parenthetical citation if you decide to paraphrase from the source instead of use it directly. You definitely need to use a direct quote at least once. If you choose to do paraphrasing later, then you still do the same thing, author's last name and page number. And that's it, guys. If you have questions, email your teachers directly. Take your time. You'll get time to work on this. Put forth your best effort, and you'll yield the results you want. Good luck.